Welcome to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, the New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by... You're on
back
mute
to
still.
Mockins.
There you go. Now you're off mute. You were on mute. Let's try it again.
You're
Joined
on
as
mute.
always by...
Not me, Rob, who is now off of mute.
Yes, the fun of doing a live show. All right, guys. It's official. It's that time. It's draft season, guys. It's officially here. It's not even like draft season, I shouldn't say. It's draft week. Draft week. Oh, my gosh. It feels like it's been like 17 years we've been waiting for this, basically. But, yeah, here we are, guys. First episode of the week of the draft. And we're going to give you guys a full first-round mock here, going through every single first-round pick, what we think is going to potentially happen. Now, I'll tell you guys up front this, but most people will not tell you. We're probably going to be wrong a lot. That's just the life of a mock. I love like my mock's the best. No, my mock's the best. Like we have no clue what these guys are thinking. This is what makes sense to us, though, based on the needs of the team and who happens to be available when they're available in our particular scenario. The biggest thing, obviously,
32 teams in this draft.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, there's obviously the Panthers are not in the first round of this draft, but who knows? Do they give away the house and try to trade up to get into the first round? Probably not.
Well, yeah.
But you don't know.
Texans also are not in the first round, I believe, as well. I think that's the two teams I got to go off the top of my head, not there. But yeah, we got a lot of moves to talk about here. We did allow for trades as well. Spoiler alert there. Now, we do a ton. I wanted to keep it realistic. I think we probably went under where we probably needed to go trade wise. But most of the trades, I feel like, is they move one pick down, 2 picks down to block somebody else. And that's so hard to predict. It's not even funny. And that might even change the outcome of what we put here, depending on how things happen. So
who could have predicted when Julio Jones was picked up by
my God.
But by the Falcons.
Yeah.
And they went from 22 up to 8 or 6.
I'll go one better for you. Ricky Williams being traded to the Saints. We'll give you our entire draft for Ricky Williams. And that's what they did, literally, the entire draft. If that's not a Mike Ditka move, I don't know what is.
Mike Ditka.
Ditka. That
Is it a big Ditka or a small Ditka?
Medium. All right, we're gonna go into our picks here, and this could be very well a historic draft. To the best of my knowledge, there has been 3 drafts in the history of the NFL draft that has started quarterback. There has, I don't know if there's been a single one that's gone quarterback. And there's a lot of rumors about that kind of stuff. So let's talk about what's going to happen here. Pick number 1. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, we're bringing back the draft sound. We're bringing it back here. Number 1, the Chicago Bears. Clearly going with Malik Nabors. No, I'm kidding. Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. I don't think we got to talk much about this. I mean, everybody knows what's going on here. They already traded
right on the wall.
Fields. Yeah, this was probably going to happen basically since they secured the first overall pick in the draft. We all know our thoughts on it. If you listen to the show on a regular basis, I think he's not really up to the hype per se, but who knows? We've been wrong before. So, Since we got some Bear fans friends, we'll root, I guess, for them to be right.
I mean,
not more
could
right
be
than the
another
Giants.
Bryce Young situation. I don't know.
Yes, he might have some shortcomings. You're saying?
Like
I said, I just can't get past some of the personality stuff with him. And again, I don't know him personally. I don't pretend to know him personally because whenever we say that, we get a comment like, well, you don't know him. You don't know what his mental makeup. It's like I can only go off of what I hear in interviews and what I see on the field. And again, for me, I lost every bit of respect for him with the whole crying in his mommy's lap thing. I'm sorry. You're a grown man. You don't do that. You don't do that. The only time you do that is if like a family member dies or something, not because you lost a football game. I should clarify.
Yeah,
there are scenarios it's okay to cry. I'm not that guy. I've done it plenty of times myself when people pass or things like that happen, but not over.
Not a week 3 of football.
Yeah, not a week a football game where you climb into the stadium. Like if you can't handle that, imagine what's going to happen when it goes to a 3-game losing streak in Chicago and the media just eats you alive. I'm sorry, there's just certain people who cannot handle big cities, and I'm worried again that he's one of those guys. We'll find out again. Hopefully, I'm wrong. We got some Chicago Bear fans that listen and we respect, so we don't root against the Bears. But yeah, it's just
Kenny, if you're there, what do you think, Kenny?
Yeah, I think he's set up to be potentially one of the biggest busts in NFL history just because of all the hype. Not even because he'll be that bad. I think he'll be an okay player. I just think with all this hype, you can't be okay and call that a success pick. Like you have to be like a Hall of Fame quality Pro Bowl at least quarterback.
Yeah, they're set enough to be like the next stud. Like he's gonna bring the next Super Bowl ring to Chicago.
He'll be the first 3,000-yard passer for Chicago. They're the only team in the NFL, I believe, who doesn't have one. That's kind of a crazy stat there. All right.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the stat.
Nowadays?
Or was it a 4,000-yard? There was something about.
I would go more 4,000. I mean, I would assume
passing yards in Bears season. Let's see. Okay, no, they don't have a 4,000. I'm sorry. Eric Kramer holds the record for 3,838 yards in 1995. That's pretty bad, though, when you have a 30-year-old passing record, considering how much there has been change in offense and everything. I'm kind of shocked Jay Cutler never did it as a Bear, but
that's what I'm saying. Like I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. So yeah. All righty. Let's go into number 2 here. And we got the Washington Commanders. Again, not the Washington State like the Mugs a couple of years ago. The Washington D.C. Commanders, and this is a team that, guys, listen. We've owned this as Giant fans. We've owned this team for the last few years, for the most part. This team is about to be a completely different team next year, guys. And this pick here very well could cement what type of team they are for the next 5-10 years, depending on how good of a pick this is or isn't. Now, you got to remember they brought in Cliff Kingsbury to be their OC. He's very well known for a lot of the quarterbacks right now in the league. And a lot of those guys are mobile type of quarterbacks. That's why we're going with the most mobile quarterback basically in this draft, who lit the SEC on fire at LSU, quarterback Jayden Daniels. Now, I do think it's going to be interesting in the beginning because we talked about that on, I think it was the last episode we talked about it, where the Commanders brought in all of the quarterbacks there at once. And they kind of met him in separate rooms. They didn't put them together and do tests together or anything crazy like that. But Jayden Daniels' agent kind of thought of that as a slap in the face and apparently liked a few posts on Twitter about being disrespectful and all this kind of stuff there. And it gave us a pause on, okay, would they not draft him? Maybe they go Drake Maye instead because of that. But in the end, it came down to the fact that this guy, I think, best fits the system that Cliff Kingsbury is going to want to run. And on top of that, guys, they got 4 or 5 years to fix that relationship. God willing for them that Jayden Daniels is a good player.
Yeah.
It's not like next week they have to sign an extension. He could be a free agent. He can leave whenever he wants. Like, he's stuck there as long as they want to keep him for 5 years. They got a while to fix that relationship, and I guarantee you in 5 years, no one will remember this meeting basically happened. It's 5 years, guys. Think about 5 years ago, what you were doing today. You have no clue. Think about somebody who upsets you 5 years ago. You probably don't hold a grudge. It's 5 years ago. Get over it.
Speak for yourself.
Well, you just hold a grudge for life. I know you better than that. I do too.
Leave what happened between my ex-wife and I alone.
Now, it's funny because when I first started working with the company that I do work for, I initially worked with a guy who used to live out in Texas, Florida. None of us are people actually from Florida. We're all from somewhere. But yeah, what I saw is that, talking to him, he kind of didn't understand the boundary between New York and New Jersey. And he's like, "Oh, you're from New Jersey. Forget about it." And I'm like, "No, guys, I'm from Jersey. Like, I don't forget anything ever. We hold grudges for life where I come from. Like, you mess with us once, you are dead to us forever."
Yeah.
And it's kind of true. It is kind of true. So luckily, Jayden Daniels not from Jersey. So hopefully for their sake. Maybe, hopefully not for our sake. He does hold a grudge, maybe for our sake. Considering it is in division team there. I mean, that's a guy I wouldn't want to face twice a year if he is what I think he is. I'd be very happy if they skipped him. I think he's the best probably of all the quarterbacks out there. I know it's kind of crazy to say. Again, Caleb Williams is this big stud prospect supposedly. I think Jayden Daniels, as long as his build allows him to stay healthy, because he is a little lighter, and you put the right line behind him, I think he could be an absolute stud, guys. Absolute stud.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of potential, but like you said, it depends on how the Commanders rebound this year, because it's all new coaching.
Oh, yeah.
All new everything this year. So it's not like the old team where we used to make fun of for the past 2 decades.
We're still going to make fun of them.
Let
me just make sure. Let me be very clear on that. We're still going to make fun of them.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying it's not the same team that we used to make fun of.
Yeah. Ever since Magic Johnson got involved, they're getting their stuff together.
Yeah. He cures everything.
All right. Well, we could get into some things he cures, but that might be controversial. Let's get to pick number 3 here. And this is where I think there's been a lot of rumors, obviously, about people trading into the spot. And I think that there's a lot of talks of that potentially happening. I don't think they do that. I still think, listen, I'm never to say never. Somebody offers something crazy, maybe they decide to do it. To me, if I'm the Patriots, I look at my team. I got Bailey Zappi. I think they picked up Jacoby Brissett in the offseason, I'm right.
I believe so.
But they don't have somebody that you can develop even at quarterback. You have a top 3 pick. There's 3 A-tier quarterbacks in this draft, basically. To me, you got to pull the trigger unless you just hate the prospect that's left. Because again, we talked about this on previous podcasts. You basically got sloppy thirds. Like, you got the leftovers. You got whatever nobody else but ahead of you
leftovers.
I'm just saying that's what you got. Like, you don't get your pick. You get whatever the big 3 is left. But I still think that in the end,
if you're foaming at the mouth, looking at this prospect, and all of a sudden the Commanders go, "We're going to take the other guy." Now you're sitting there as a Pat's like, wait a minute.
I just think, to me, I don't care who you like or don't like. Quarterback is such an important position that if you got a blue chip prospect available to you and you don't have a quarterback, this is a league of haves and have-nots. The Patriots are definitely in the have-nots. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have anybody you can say they're developing right now with any potential to be a long-term quarterback. You got to pull the trigger. So we're pulling the trigger here. Pick 3, Drake Maye, quarterback out of North Carolina. And, Drake's the guy who scares me because of the fact he comes from North Carolina. That's point blank the issue for me with anything else. It's a small school. We talked about it. You don't see him going against the big time competition. So we don't have a lot of tape against high quality opponents to know fully what we got. He's a prospect that you need to work on. He's definitely not a finished product by any shape of the imagination. Not that many prospects are, But when you're picking third overall, you want a guy who's a little more polished typically than this guy. But people just seem to love potential on this kid. And sometimes potential pans out, sometimes potential doesn't pan out. But I can think of a lot of North Carolina quarterbacks that had potential. Ask the Bears a couple picks ago about Mitch Trubisky. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like North Carolina.
I mean, we've talked about it, especially old school Patriots, especially with Bill Belichick. They would a move like this, they would wait for someone to come up that wants a quarterback like, hey, Vikings, do you want Drake Maye or something like that? How much are you willing to give up for more draft capital down the road?
Yeah.
But guess what? Bill Belichick is not a head coach in the football, in the NFL at all right now. You got a brand new head coach who's landing his career. We kind of find out that Robert Kraft's a little bit of a doucher.
Yeah, who would have thought? The rub and tug guy himself.
Yeah, just rubbing away. But
as long as he's not tugging away.
Yeah. They got a lot of holes to fill. Speaking about rubbing and tugging.
Oh my. Oh, you did there.
But QB is where you have to start at.
Yeah.
So you got to develop a good QB. And
I love how some people like you have to have a team around. No. And people always like you have to have a team around to build the quarterback. No, you could listen, especially when you have Jacoby Brissett. We talked about him as a minute ago. I said I don't think he's like a potential long-term quarterback, and I still say that I'm not backtracking from that. But what he can be is a decent bridge quarterback. Where if you want to sit Drake Maye for a year, develop him, develop the team around him for the year, and hope you can pop him in the system next year, Drake Maye, where he's learned a lot of things. You fix some of the issues with him at that point. You have a better team around him. This is a good scenario, really, for Drake Maye, if you think about that from that perspective. Because Jacoby Brissett's not going to impress you. He's not going to steal the job from Drake Maye. But he's not going to embarrass you either.
He's the all-star backup quarterback.
He's Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
That's what he is. He's a lifetime backup that you can occasionally pop in as a starter and not regret it. He's a Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, like,
for Giant fans,
he won't embarrass himself too much as a starter.
No. Like I said, I don't think he's a guy that would. Like I said, he's just not a guy who's going to take the job, and either. And that's the perfect player to have as a bridge quarterback. You know,
correct. And you know what? If he takes the job, then you know you got issues with your quarterback you just drafted.
Yeah, seriously. So, not that they've had any issues drafting a first-round quarterback lately. Yeah. All right. Guess what, guys? We got our first trade here, which coincidentally may be the only trade. We'll find out. But hint. But we got a trade here going. Pick number 4, the Minnesota Vikings picked up the phone, called up the Cardinals, offered them pick number 11 and 23. And the Cardinals accepted the offer. After all, the Cardinals, we talked about that when we played them last year. This is probably the worst roster last year in the entire league, top to bottom, talent wise. And you can honestly look at this roster and say there's some big holes here. So they got to fill them, and they can't fill them if they don't have a ton of picks. They have an extra first-round pick right now, currently from the Houston Texans. They make this move, they got 3 draft picks in the first round. That is a potential game-changer type of draft for them if they make the right moves. This is the type of draft you look back on and go, wow, can you believe we got this in 1 year? They're going to have that chance here. Now, I know some people are say, oh my God, they don't have a good wide receiver. Why would they not take Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabors, Rome Odunze, something like that? And I get that theory 100%. But here's the problem. They're not one player away, guys. So you want to go ahead and get, let's say, Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay. What else you getting? You need the extra pick at that point to fill another hole at that point, or else you're going to go into the season with more holes still. So, again, I think they'll be tempted by getting a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., who could potentially be the next Larry Fitzgerald for them at that point. No offense to Larry Fitzgerald. I hate making references like that as if he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But people are already like anointing this kid to be a Hall of Famer. So let's go with it a little bit there. He's got that potential to be that kind of long-term franchise wide receiver. Probably not be top 5 in every category, Larry Fitzgerald. So as I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. No disrespect to him thing. But he's got a potential to be a franchise wide receiver, and they could pick him up right where they're at. But like I said, instead, they're going to take that trade back because having that extra first-round pick is huge for them right now with all the different holes they got in that roster. And with the 4th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select J.J. McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. So we literally start the draft here, quarterback, which like I said, to me is the best of my knowledge is the first time it's ever happened. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong by all means, because I don't pretend to be the guy who knows every stat off the top of my head. But I know of 3 times it's been quarterback. I can't think of one time it's been 4 in a row. And listen, the Vikings are desperate, guys, to go ahead and quit a quarterback. They're desperate to get a quarterback. They don't get a
quarterback. What are you going to do with JJ? Because
yeah, well,
JJ's not going to stay there.
Here's the other thing on top. Oh, I just realized that it'd be JJ and JJ. A JJ to JJ combo. Ooh, we got JJ's all over the place.
That's a little saucy.
I know.
JJ and all right now.
They didn't make that trade with the Texans earlier in this year to stay put. Let's be very frank on that. They got pick number 23 from them so they can have a second first-round pick so they can make this move and move up. That's what they did. And they're going to take their shot at a quarterback. And it's quite obvious the top 3 are not going anywhere. Like I said, barring any kind of craziness from the Patriots, but I don't buy that news personally. I think
yeah,
they can say they're open for business because they're going to listen. But I think that's what's going to happen is that they're going to move up at some point here. And it makes sense for the Cardinals. Like I said, weak roster with a young head coach that kind of impressed, to be honest, last year, what he did with that team, because that was a crap team and he had playing hard. And you got to think you give him some tools and some players, and he might do something. Plus getting Kyler Murray back for the full year. So you're going to try to fill the extra holes by having the extra pick there. Vikings get their quarterback they wanted all along. Everybody should be happy with this move long term, depending on how the players pan out, obviously.
Correct.
Which, yeah, who knows with McCarthy? I'm still not sold on McCarthy, but it is what it is. Hopefully the Vikings are for their sake. Next up, number 5. Now, here's the craziness of how everything's kind of changed in the last couple of weeks here. Everybody thought it was going to be quarterback, wide receiver. That's including us. We said it on this program even.
Quite a few times.
Things have kind of changed. And I talked about it initially when we started talking about mocks and stuff like that, I don't know if Harbaugh would go for wide receiver as opposed to grabbing one of the tackles because of the fact that that's just his MO. He likes to run the ball. He doesn't necessarily the flashy receivers, counts on the quarterback, that kind of thing. Look kind of what they did over in, Michigan. Blake Corum was the MVP of that offense, not J.J. McCarthy. So then they got rid of both their top wide receivers. And I'm like, oh, God, maybe they have to go wide receiver. And they got them all available here because in this case here, it's all quarterbacks taken so far. So you got to think that's going to be tempting for them, at least. But in the end, I think Harbaugh sticks to his guns and says to the Chargers, I need some offensive line here because that was a really bad offensive line last year, guys. I know the Chargers aren't that team that, I know the Chargers aren't that team that everybody goes, oh, let me just follow the Chargers nonstop. Like, as Giant fans even, we know a lot of the players on the Chiefs, the Packers, some more popular national teams like that there. Chargers aren't on that list, but much like the Giants, the Chargers had tons of issues on the offensive line. Their left tackle was literally the only good spot they had with Rashawn Slater, who, besides that, it's just not very good, guys. Their right tackle was Trey Pippins III. Esquire. Allowed 9 sacks last year, had a PFF grade of just 62.8. So guess what, guys? He got to go. And I know he's played left tackle for his time at Notre Dame. I know there's a risk to doing that, but this kid is a stud tackle overall. The pick is in, and it's Joe Alt, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. And they go ahead and get now bookend tackles. They have a lot of youth on that interior offensive line. There's guys they've drafted in the last couple of years. It's kind of like us. They've drafted guards, the center, and all that kind of stuff there. You got to hope a couple of those guys start panning out, and they get a much better offensive line last year. Hopefully keeps Herbert upright, lets them develop the running game you know Harbaugh wants at that point, and get everything rolling for them at that point. So, like I said, it makes too much sense. I know a wide receiver, guys. I know someone's going to hit me with this, like, they should get a wide receiver. They have no receivers. They traded away their wide receivers. Guys, there's tons of receivers in this draft. Tons of receivers in this draft. They got plenty more picks where that came from. There's not a lot of.
Look at Jim. Just look at Harbaugh, both brothers. Look at their teams. What do they have in common? They normally have a really good
coach with the last name Harbaugh.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that part. But
that's why we have a podcast.
They have good lines.
That kind of brilliant insight you won't get anywhere else but two giant goofballs. But like I said, to me, it just makes so much sense because again, you're not going to get a guy in the second, third round that's probably going to step in right off the bat and start for you at the tackle position, and you're going to have all the confidence in the world at. You can get a receiver you can throw in the mix. Plus, keep in mind, again, I'm not a fan of him, but they did draft one in the first round last year in Quentin Johnston and TCU. Again, don't draft TCU receivers. But they made that mistake. They made that bet. They're not going to lie in it. But wait till later on, get one or two receivers at that point that you can try to get that kind of production out of. Or maybe you don't get 1,000-yard receiver. Maybe get 2 500-yard receivers. You could figure out a way to get that kind of production going at that point. Maybe you get a good tight end like Jadavian Sanders or something like that later on. A guy like that kind of is like a Darren Waller type, except retiring, where he kind of plays on the outside like a receiver. You can make different things up to create offense. That's not that difficult when you have a good quarterback, which supposedly they have. And I only say supposedly because I love watching Herbert on film as far as some of the throws he makes. But this guy's got a 500 record for his career right now. That's not good when you're this young. This is supposed to be your prime time. This is supposed to be your time to shine. Because I know, like Eli, for example, has a 500 record. But that's because he spent so many years losing towards the end. When he was in his prime, it was a winning record. So your time to shine there, Herbert. You got a second guy to protect you. So that brings up with number 6. Who's picking number 6 again?
Who's 6? I was about to say, who is 6?
I'm trying to remember. Who does number 6 work for?
Roger Goodell?
With the 6th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New York Football Giants select Marvin Harrison Jr., wideout from Ohio State. And I got to say, this was very, very tempting to go ahead and go with Malik Nabors, guys. Like, Rob and I were definitely tempted by this. It's like one of those two was coming based on how this board fell. I think the problem is you got to go with the surefire bet. You got to go with the one that is going to be working at that point there. And in this case, I just can't sit there and say that we know exactly that both these guys can be studs. So you're going to go with the more safe pick. And I think that's the safe pick to do, is to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. and say, you know what? It's probably a good spot to go. And listen, y'all know I'm tempted by Michael Penix Jr. Let me just throw that out there right now. We don't have to say it again. That you know how tempted I am always. I just think that
you can't go with him at number 6.
You can't. And don't get me wrong, I think he's a good enough quarterback to take. It's the matter of the board tells me it doesn't make sense at that point because he's probably going to be available later on where you could trade back up to get him, maybe get him in the second round. People don't value him as much as I do. I'll put it that way. So, and that's the quarterback you're going if you go quarterback. So I know some guys are going to say that. To me, reaching is never a good idea. Reaching is never a good idea, guys. You take the best player available as long as it's a position of need. Like, obviously, if you have, let's say, a stud running back, you don't take a running back at 6. You know, that kind of scenario, you know. Talking to you, Atlanta Falcons. I'm just saying, like, you know, that's what you do. You take who is available. You take, because you're picking 6. This is a guy that should be not to say a Hall of Famer. I guess I should go that far, but a guy who's a staple of your team and a Pro Bowl caliber talent. That's what Marvin Harrison Jr. should be. And the top of the heap. But I mean, that's what Marvin Harrison Jr. should be there. We haven't had a true number 1 since OBJ. I mean, Giant fans still salivate over the idea of signing OBJ now at what, 40 years old or whatever he is at this point. It's like,
with 3 knees that have been replaced.
Seriously, he's got one replaced the second time apparently. But you know, you gotta in the end go with the guy we've been missing, and I think again he is that guy that will fit any system. He's the pros pro. And what's a little crazy too is he's kind of quiet with everything going on right now. Like, you hear about the quarterbacks like crazy. You hear Malik Nabors in the news. You don't really hear Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think he's set up for success in New York. I'm not even saying humble. Listen, I've never had a conversation with him. He could be the biggest ego ever. And I don't care if he is, because let's be honest, he's a wide receiver. He probably is. But the big thing to me is just don't talk to the media. It's just going to get you in trouble. And he seems to do a good job of that. So I think he can handle New York. Again, I've already questioned Malik Nabors because of the statement he made about needing a quarterback to throw to him and blah, blah, blah. Maybe he was taken out of context. Some people have told me that. I still say you gave them fodder. Don't give the media fodder. That's not your job. Your job is to catch balls. So stay out of the media. So, yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. comes here. We finally got a number 1 wide receiver. I'm not giving up on quarterback, guys. We're going to do our full mock draft tomorrow for the New York Football Giants. And trust me, we're getting a quarterback, goddammit. I'm not going to say which one it is. Because it might not be Penix. You may know. I might fool you and one for once not get him. But we're going to get a quarterback because we need one. There's no doubt about it, guys. We need a goddamn quarterback. Like, Daniel Jones cannot play a single down. Because if he gets hurt, that money becomes guaranteed. I would even take a shot at a mid-range quarterback and let him play for the year, and let's see how good he gets during the year before I let Daniel Jones walk in that field one time. And it's not to be mean to Daniel Jones. We all know I like Daniel Jones as a person there. We got to get out of this contract. Can't get out of the contract if we play him and he gets hurt. Now we have to pay $40 million to him next year. You might as well keep on the roster in the year. You save nothing.
Yeah.
So, all righty. It is time for the Clash of the Titans. Number 7. The Tennessee Titans. Going with Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle out of Penn State. And, you know, Brian Callahan, not to be confused with Callahan Auto Parts. Brian Callahan, the new head coach for the Titans there. Keep in mind, he brought his daddy with him. His daddy's Bill Callahan, the guy who's literally considered the best offensive line coach in all of football for many, many years. A guy that Giants fans have been salivating to potentially try to get on our team for how many years because of how good he is and how bad our offensive line has been. He was literally released from his contract to go to the Titans to coach under his dad, which, first off, classy move by the Browns. It's not often you hear that phrase, classy move by the Browns, but that's a classy move. I don't know if I could have done it. Like, no, you're the good coach. I'm not letting you go. Are you crazy?
Yeah, right? We're going to play for your son. You nuts?
If you lost your mind, we just paid you a ton of money in a contract. You're staying here, buddy. But yeah, they made the classier move than I would have, and they decided to let him go. So Olu Fashanu is a guy who's considered the second best tackle in this draft. We talked about him during our tackles, obviously, episode we did there. and I'm not as impressed with him, but a lot of people are. If anybody can make this kid a stud, it's going to be Bill Callahan. And
I was going to say, Callahan, as one of the best coaches, could make the third or fourth best look like the best come out of this draft.
Listen, I can get a good look at a steak by sticking my head up a bull's ass, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it.
I mean, sometimes you got to take a first look.
All the Tommy Boy references. I love that movie. I haven't seen the movie in years.
Same.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it tonight now. Number 8. 8 is great. Hopefully for the Falcons. We got Dallas Turner, edge out of Alabama. You know, the Falcons finally got their QB this offseason by overpaying for old man Kirk Cousins here. But listen, Kirk Cousins is a huge upgrade over what they've had the last couple of years at that position here. 100%. You know, they got Drake London, they got Kyle Pitts, they got, Bijan Robinson. They got some talented guys on offense. They got some good offensive linemen even. So they got to think, okay, this offense just been missing a quarterback. We got a quarterback now. Let's see what it can do. Their defense was really good last year. But what can you always use in this league? A quarterback and control of the line of scrimmage. Getting a top quality pass rusher like Dallas Turner really helps you do that there. So I think it's a solid pickup for them. I mean, honestly, it's a solid pickup for anybody. That's if you can get the guy considered the top edge in the draft, you're doing pretty good. Now, I would disagree with him being the top edge, but most pundits have him as the top edge in this draft.
Well, I mean, look at Atlanta Falcons last year. Their defense was pretty good for the most part. They would have been better if the offense would have stayed on the field a little longer and they didn't gas out as much because they were on the field so much. So you did like you already said, Kirk Cousins comes in. He's a hell of an upgrade for this team. Hell upgrade. Keeps the offense on the field way longer. Upgrade that defense, and you're almost a lock-in to win that division in a very, very poor division.
You know, and you got to think of it from the perspective also of, let's say the Falcons are putting up some points. What does that mean for the defense? People are going to pass against them a lot more because they're going to try to play comeback. Yeah. Say what you want about Cousins because, again, we've kind of talked trash about him in this segment even. He's not a good playoff quarterback. That's for damn sure. But he has definitely put up some points in his time as a regular season quarterback. So when you can put up more points, teams have to come from behind. They have to come behind, they have to pass. Teams have to pass, you want to send rushers. Why not get the guy who's considered the best edge in the draft? So, again, Dallas Turner, Dallas off to Atlanta, which would be funny if the Cowboys drafted him, by the way. It'd be spectacular. Now, keep in mind, he's not the first Turner in Atlanta. He also had Ted Turner, of course.
Ooh, I was going to say.
Yeah, there's a history. There's a history with the name. All righty. Number 9.
9.
And the Bears, quite frankly, could be the luckiest bastards known to man right now. So think about this. Last year, they had the first overall pick. They traded it to the Panthers, who drafted a quarterback that, let's say, underwhelmed in his first season. I think it's safe to say. Underwhelmed. They get the first round pick again because of that. They got one of the guys who's considered one of the best prospects in the last 10, 15 years here to go be their quarterback now. And they get pick number 9, their own pick. And guess who falls right into their lap? Malik Nabors, wide receiver at LSU. So the Bears now have a 3-headed monster at wide receiver. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Malik Nabors. If he don't succeed, that's on him. I'm sorry. Especially when you got, Cole Kmet, the tight end on top of that there. They got weapons, guys, at that point. They got some weapons. Woo!
They also re-signed Pennis.
Yeah. I mean, that's, like I said, I know there's some line issues, don't get me wrong, and they can fix that, potentially later on this draft here. Because you get a number 9, potentially a chance to get that electric of a wide receiver. I don't care what else you got in that room, you go for it. unless you have
100%.
5 of those guys, but he's going to be, like I said, keep in mind, Keenan Allen is not going to be there forever.
I was going to say, Keenan Allen's up there. He's good old veteran. DJ Moore's not exactly cheap either. I mean, he could be there for a little bit, but you're not going to have him on a deal like.
But Keenan Allen's 32 years old. He's got 1 year left on that contract, and that's it. So
that's what
I'm
saying. He's a veteran player. He's up there.
Yeah.
So you bring
Malik, that's a move.
Nabors in here. Yeah.
You're thinking about the future. That's what you're supposed to do at that point. Keenan Allen again has injury issues. Maybe you make him a third receiver at that point. I mean, this is, like I said, this is a legit move for a team at that point that hasn't had much of a spark on offense. Basically since the 60s. I'm trying to think, when's the last time you go, oh no, the Bears offense, like that's legit there, so we'll see what happens there. But if that works out that way, I think Bears fans will be very, very happy. So, all right, let's check in with our crosstown rivals here, the New York Jets. And who's been jettisoned off to New York now? Pick number 10, Talisi Fauga, offensive tackle out of Oregon State. Now, keep in mind, he's going to be drafted as a tackle, but this is a guy who could play guard as well. He can play either position. He's got a little bit, remember we said he's got a little bit shorter, stubby arms. We talked about him there. So some people think he's going to have to play guard. Me personally, I'm just looking at it from the perspective of the Jets have to basically keep Aaron Rodgers upright this season. And the best way to do that is literally get the best offensive lineman you can available when your pick comes up. Because he's got to last more than 2 passes this season. At least 5 passes. At least 5 passes you need from him. But yeah, overall, it's been an issue where this offensive line gets injured left and right. This offensive line has problems, productivity and, ability. Here's a scenario we can kind of get a player into that team that can play guard, can play tackle, can fix a spot for you, and hopefully, again, keep Aaron Rodgers upright for him this year.
Yeah, keep that ankle healthy there.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's got to get healthy this year. It's got to stay. Imagine if he gets hurt again. Like, oh, my God, what a horrible trade that would be. Like the biggest hype
talk about the biggest bust in New York.
Yeah. Like that would go down as one of the biggest hype kind of issues there, I just think it's a little crazy there. So, but you gotta do what you gotta do to get him healthy and get him on the field, get him staying on the field, and getting him to get some time with the ball too at that point. So, again, you get a really good offensive lineman that's got some flexibility position wise. That, and I mean, you also got Breece Hall in the backfield that you give him a little protection going through the line. Oh yeah, get him some more yards. Oh yeah, so, I mean he'll definitely keep those holes open. Yeah, ayo. Robert Kraft's like, hello.
I get to play those holes twice here.
Pick number 11. So this is the first of the trade that the picks that the Cardinals got from the Vikings. And we talked about how they really need a wide receiver. Here they pick at number 11, and one of the big 3 is still available. So the obvious choice for them is Rome Odunze out of Washington. And it's crazy. They get the extra pick. They get one of the big 3 receivers still to drop into their lap at that point there. Now, if you look at their depth chart, I look at ESPN to see what they list. They list Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch as their top wide receivers right now. Those 2 receivers combined for 845 yards last year.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Now, Michael Wilson was like 500 of those yards, by the way. It's like 560 or something like that. He's the only one that they have on their active roster, I believe, that had more than 400 yards. This is a really bad group. Like, people talk about the Chiefs needing wide receivers. People talk about us needing a top wide receiver. This is probably the worst wide receiver group in all of football right now. Keep in mind they traded their number 2 receiver and they let the number 1 receiver go in free agency. So, yeah, that's an issue, guys. They need to figure out that. And getting Rome Odunze is a great way to do that. So again, he's top 3. I know most people kind of go 50-50 on Nabors and Harrison, have him as the top as at that number 3 receiver, but he's not as far from 1 and 2 as people make him out to be there. He's just a different kind of player. That's what it is in the end. So they finally get a good weapon here for Kyler Murray at that point, who, let's be honest, Hollywood Brown I've never been impressed with. Larry Fitzgerald was, a little long in the tooth by the time Murray got there. So he really hasn't had top weapon like that. Here's his chance. Can he put down the Call of Duty? Can he put in the work? Because I'll tell you, if he doesn't, he could be in trouble. Eventually, the Cardinals are going to get fed up and move on.
Yeah, I'm going to cut him out.
Cut him out. All righty. Pick number 12. And I know everybody's expecting a quarterback here, guys, but nay, I say, nay, the Denver Broncos will not.
I see what you did there.
Draft a quarterback. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Today, they traded for Zach Wilson, by the way, for those who haven't heard. The fact that they traded for Zach Wilson, again, those of you guys watch on a regular basis, I love to read between the lines and try to figure things out based on that. That tells me 2 things. 1, they don't think they can move up for a quarterback because they wouldn't go get a quarterback if they're about to go get a top flight quarterback. 2, they're not sure if there's a quarterback worth taking at that pick because, again, they wouldn't make that move if they thought there was a quarterback worth taking at number 12. So that leads me to believe they're not going to do that. And they're another team that's got a decent amount of holes there on their roster. But I do think as much as they want to get the offense rolling and get a quarterback, remember a couple of years ago, they had one of the most dominant defenses in the history of the NFL, basically. And then last year they gave up what was it, 71 points or something like that to the Dolphins 70. There. Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. So I'm willing to give them
the defense came back around a little bit towards the second half of the year, but my guy, you dropped a 78.
Well, I feel like everybody basically came around for the Broncos the second half of the year, even Russell Wilson. It was like they rallied around him after the Broncos told him they want to get rid of him. It was like something out of the movie Major League. I'm wondering if they had a picture of Sean Payton naked and pieces of clothing they can remove with each win. So many random movie references today. Anybody who's too young to know Tommy Boy or Major League, I suggest highly that you watch it as long as you're over the age of 18. And don't need parental consent to watch
Tommy Boy. They're both PG-13.
Are they? I don't know.
Pretty sure. Also, the 80s were a different time when it comes to Major League.
Plus, if you're under 18, you probably shouldn't be watching this show in general because they were making rub and tug jokes in it.
Yeah. Filling holes.
Yeah, all kinds of things here. Anyway, so yeah, literally went with best player available for the Broncos at that point there in a position of need. And defense was what I was hoping for them at that point because that's where I think they want to really put their touch on there more than anything else. And there's a guy sitting there. So obviously it makes sense for them. And that's Jared Verse, the edge out of Florida State. Again, you got a great piece for the defense. You fix the defense later on. You either try to get a quarterback, in another round, or you sit tight and go, this wasn't our year at that point. Let's build up a team and see what we can do and try to re-hit that market next year. Because you can't force the pick, guys. I can't stress it enough. You can't force it. On to lucky number 13.
13.
The Raiders. Oh, yes. The Raiders. Raiders are on the board. Now, this is another spot you can think, again, quarterback. But they got Gardner Minshew now, the porn stash himself. They got Aiden there, one of their rookie from last year is going to go ahead and compete as well, supposedly. But let's be honest, porn stash is going to win it. I don't think they're in that much of a rush to get a quarterback as some people think. I think they go, you know what? If we can get one, great. But we still got Gardner Minshew, who's serviceable for now, at least. You know, I think that's really more their mentality, because if you listen to the rumors, rumor is that Devontae Adams is pretty ticked off about the lack of a top quarterback with him at that point. So he wouldn't be ticked off if he knew that they were looking to get one in the draft or something. And it's quite obvious that that kind of a star you have those conversations with a lot of times. So I don't think they do it again. I think they skip the quarterback position again. Keep in mind they lost Jermaine Illuminor to us, their right tackle. They also lost Brandon Parker, their swing tackle in free agency. So they're a little tackle deprived there. And they haven't spent a lot of, draft capital, top-end draft capital on the offensive line, even though they have an average offensive line based on numbers. We talked about that when we signed Brasillo as the offensive line coach. He did a lot with a little. To have an average offensive line with subpar talent on that line was an accomplishment. Well, he gone along with 2 tackles.
Yeah.
So they're getting a tackle here. J.C. Latham, offensive tackle out of Alabama, who is actually our number 2 tackle on our board there. And I think a great pick, a great player, is going to be around for a long time for them. And they already have one good tackle at a left tackle. So you go with 2 good bookend tackles and you just try to fill in the middle as best you can. They re-signed their center. This is going to be a good move for them, I think, overall, to get the offense moving. Because if you don't have a tackle, you're the New York Giants. Let's be honest. You don't have a right tackle, you are the New York Giants. You don't want to be the New York Giants. We've been the New York Giants. Yeah. We know how bad it is. Get yourself a right tackle. Wow. Fix your offensive line. Yeah.
Don't flip burgers.
And I'll tell you guys, there's going to be so many tackles taken in this first round. I feel like I really do. Next up, when the Saints go marching in to pick 14. The Saints. Now, they need a lot of work on their offensive line. You talk to anybody who follows the Saints, talk to anybody who does, kind of we do content creation all out in the Saints. They'll all tell you offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. They have a lot of issues there they need to fill at that point because they've lost some players. They've had to, fill in some spots there with temporary stopgaps. And the offensive line did a pretty damn good job for them last year. But you can't expect stopgaps to last forever. So with the 14th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Saints select Troy Fontenau out of Washington. Now, he's another guy that is going to be one of those, is he a tackle, is he a guard kind of guy? But what he is a solid offensive line guy. And they need guard, they need tackle. So it don't matter. No matter where you want to put him, you need him. So therefore, they're making the stop. They're hoping to straighten that offensive line, keep Carr healthy. He's had all kinds of injury issues the last year or so. Again, this is where I'm saying you're going to see so many offensive tackles taken this first round here. If people talk about it being the year of receiver and quarterback because of the way this is expected to start this draft, this might be the year of tackles, guys. That might be really what this should be called, the year of tackles, because there's so many of them there. So let's go ahead and bolt to the Colts with number 15. With the 15th pick in the 24 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. Alabama. Colts secondary got rocked all year long, guys. They brought back Kenny Moore the second, then Julian Blackmon. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking that move. Those are good moves to bring those guys back. Those guys were not your problem. It was pretty much everybody else. So you bring back the 2 guys that are solid. Now you go get a guy that a lot of people have as the top corner in this draft. We have him as number 2, but a lot of people, again, have him as number 1. Where our rankings are a little different than everybody else. We're goofballs. So you bring back a guy that's going to be a solid guy for your secondary at the very least. Guy who's been, put through the ringer at Alabama there and succeeded and come through that fire there of the SEC. Looked like a solid corner. You still got Kenny Moore at that point. You still got, like I said, you still got Julian Blackmon, at least for a couple of years because he's getting a little older now. You got 3 out of 4 positions fixed. You should have a decent secondary as long as Arnold works out. And he's one of those guys that takes forever to develop as a corner. So you go in, you get your quarterback back, you fix up your secondary a little bit. And keep in mind, guys, this is one of those teams that could scare some people and fight for a title. That division is going to be interesting next year. The Jaguars, the Texans, the Colts, and a lot of people are just trying to hand it to the Texans. Well, they got a receiver. They got a receiver. They had receivers last year. That wasn't their problem. Their problem was just a young team that needs to continue to develop. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't.
And let's not forget about the Colts. Like, everyone counted them out last year as well, but they were right there towards the end, about to get in a wild card spot. And they played some tough football. Like, they almost beat out the Jaguars. Like, they were tied with them for a while.
And this is also
Houston snuck in.
Yeah, it's also a team that, again, didn't have their quarterback. They're getting their quarterback back.
Yeah.
Quarterback back. I mean, assuming he's healthy and is good. We only saw him for 4 or 5 games last year, but he looked good for those 4 or 5 games, you know? That guy was definitely scoring touchdowns left and right with both his arms and his feet. So, you know, we'll see what happens in a full season there. But if he's good and they get the secondary up and rocking, that's a potential scary team there. All right, let's move on to the Pacific Northwest with the fake birds.
Get some grunge out.
Get some, what did you say? You muted yourself now. Now you're muted again. You do this yourself.
Yep. Get some of that grunge out. No,
get
the mute button just goes on delay for me. It's ridiculous.
It mutes you automatically because of the fact that you talk during it. You burp during the countdown.
Yes. All the time.
All right. Number 16, as we getting the halfway point here after this. The Seattle Seahawks. And if there's one thing the Seahawks are known for, especially in the past couple of drafts, especially last year, BPA, best player available. You know, they went into, 2023 draft, having drafted probably the best corner from that prior draft. And what they go get? Another corner. Because he was the best player available on the board. You know, they went ahead and they have 2 solid receivers there, Metcalf and Lockett. Best player available was a receiver. They got a receiver. Well, in this case here, the best player available is a tight end. And it's Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. So GM John Sanders can't help himself at that point. It takes that best player available. Plus, plus they also lost Will Deasley in free agency. Remember a lot, they like to have a double tight end set with Noah Fant and Will Deasley. They lost one of those 2. So now they get to go ahead and replace Will Deasley with a whole lot better of a talent there. No disrespect to Will Deasley. He's not a bad NFL player. He's just not near the talent level that Brock Bowers expected to be. He's like one of the top, probably the top, one of the top 5 tight ends at prospect wise, at least in the last 10, 15 years here. He's considered elite, especially compared to the rest of this class of tight ends here. So they upgraded position. They give it a little help to the offense there. And we'll see what happens. That's a hard one to tell because there's a whole new coaching staff there, and you're kind of like, well, what do they need to run their system? I don't even know what their system is.
Yeah, we're gonna see a big difference in play because Sneaky Pete was there for so long, and Sneaky Pete exited right out the back door.
Not sneaky anymore.
Yep, Irish goodbye. He just went, I'm out.
All righty. Number 17. We just talked about this team a minute ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the other AFC South teams. This is a team that, quite frankly, could not stop the pass worth a damn all year long, basically, last year. It's one of their biggest issues they had. So this year, they bring in Eric Armstead, defensive line from the 49ers. They bring in Darnell Savage, Ronald Darby to beef up their secondary. Now they also get the guy that we had ranked as the best corner in the entire draft, Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. Who would have thought you ever get a Toledo player in the first round? But here he is. from the great school of Toledo. I couldn't tell you. I assume it's Ohio. Is that Ohio? I assume Toledo's a city in Ohio. But
sure.
yeah, that's where you get the guy. I mean, again, this is a guy that was on the radar as being like a second, third kind of draft pick, and then all of a sudden goes to that Senior Bowl and just wrecks it, crushes a top talent at the wide receiver position there, just crushes it. No one had a chance against him. He was absolutely dominant. And he just rose up the boards because people saw him being dominant at Toledo, but they're like, can he be dominant against top-end talent? I mean, Walker out of North Carolina just absolutely got embarrassed by him a couple times in drills. Absolutely embarrassed. I mean, he's got some skills there, and he's going to have a chance now to get those skills over to a place that needs them now in Jacksonville, that needs to compete with the other teams in that division. Whereas, a year or two ago, he kind of went, okay, everybody in this division sucks. This division's gotten strong, guys. It's gotten real strong. And here's the chance for them to go ahead and compete with the rest of the division and go, okay, we got a top-end talent to add in here. We got a shutdown corner potentially here because I do think Mitchell is that good. I really do. So hopefully for Jacksonville fans, I'm right. Hopefully for Giant fans like us, but if we play him, I'm wrong.
We'll have to play him for a while, right?
Yeah, we won't. Yeah. I guess I hope we do play him again soon because I like going to the games. I'm selfish for my own benefit at that point. And plus, it's like a home game for us. It's nice. So many New Yorkers live in that area. So, all right. Number 18. I think the Cincinnati Bengals got a very important lesson this year. Protect your goddamn quarterback. How many years have we been saying, well, Joe Burrow succeeds with a horrible offensive line? Well, guess what? He got shellacked out of the freaking season. If you want this guy to be your long-term quarterback, which they obviously do, who wouldn't? They signed him to a big deal on top of that. You got to protect him. You can't keep functioning with this crappy offensive line. And I'm sorry, but to me, to go ahead and pay all this money by tagging a wide receiver, I don't care how good Higgins is, tagging a wide receiver when you could have spent that $20-some-odd million on fixing your offensive line, that's a mistake. You're drafting 18. You're going to get yourself potentially a good offensive lineman here. But it's 18. It's not one of the elite guys. You're not getting the guys that are considered a sure bet. You're getting guys that are, hey, there's a lot of potential here. That's what you typically get with the mid to late first round tackle. There's issues. That's why he's not top 10. The guys who are polished like that go top 10. So with the 18th pick in the draft, the Bengals select Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia. Good
old Georgia.
Very, very, very raw talent here, guys. They brought in Trent Brown to play right tackle for them this year. It's a 1-year deal, guys. So Mims can either sit back, get taught the right way, kind of we talked about with Drake Maye there in New England, or move him to guard for 1 year if you need at that point there. But he's a big boy to put at guard. But Trent Brown is not the answer, guys, long term. In fact, if Mims is as good as some people think he is, he could very well unseat Trent Brown for that position right off the bat. He played right tackle also at Georgia, so it's on the right side of where he needs to be at that point. He obviously signed a big contract there with Orlando Brown Jr. to play left tackle, so that spot's already solidified. Here's your chance to get your long-term right tackle. Take a chance of protecting your quarterback. Because if you don't do it, you're going to be back needing a quarterback again. And he'll be smoking a lot of cigars in the hospital.
Mr. Concussed Burrow.
Exactly. All righty. Number 19. The 19th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. The Los Angeles Rams select Latu, edge at a UCLA. Listen, they lost potentially the best defensive tackle to ever play the position here. And I understand you don't consider us edge tackling like it's two different positions, but what was so great about the way that Aaron Donald played was the fact that he wasn't one-dimensional. You think a defensive tackle was the run stoppers, push the pocket. No, Aaron Donald got to the goddamn quarterback.
A lot.
This is a guy who also got to the goddamn quarterback a lot, granted in college. The big thing with him is the medical flags. We talked about that. You're going to have to go ahead and take a look a lot, get a lot of opinions on this. This is a guy that literally was told to walk away from football 2 years ago and then got permission to come back. And when he came back, I don't know if it's because of the fact that got taken away from him, but he came back with a vengeance, guys. A vengeance. I mean, literally just a beast all over that Pac-12 there at that point there. So, again, rooting for the guy because anytime you can come back and be told you probably should walk away and get that kind of stuff going, that takes some guts there. I'm glad to see it from him. Hope he is healthy. Hope it is a solid pick for them at that point. And somebody I'll be keeping an eye on this season. I'm kind of curious to see what he does because we had him listed as our top edge player. And here he is going second. And you can make the case that he might not even go the second best as far as that. I think he does. Some people could have him third or fourth best edge. So all depends on the board and who's picking at that moment. All right, so before we get into the final 13, let's pay the bills. Let's look at the comments here.
Yeah.
We got a couple of the big names coming up for us. As far as what we're looking at there, we got the Eagles coming up. We got the Cowboys coming up. I saw Sean in the chat. We got the Packers coming up here. Any of my people from Tampa Bay, we got the Bucks coming up here soon. So let's get into paying those bills real quick, and then let's go to the comments, and we'll get to the part 2 here.
Enjoying the show? Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
All righty, let's get right to the comments here. This one's here before we even started here, but Joshua Stevens, you guys are great. I've been listening to you. I've been listening later on by your podcast, first time live. Let's go, goofballs! Appreciate it, man. And it's one of the things I love about the fact that we do videos, and there's people that just pop in sometimes that listen to the audio versions, on their ride to work, whatever the case may be. We pop in every so often and say hi in the video. So it's nice that we go, oh, look, people actually do listen to us. They do exist. Those stats aren't fake.
Can you hear me?
Let's see. Bill Hartnett said Chicago is going to eat that kid alive. Just a feeling. Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like I said, I don't think he's. I don't think he fits there with him at all. Sean says no crying aloud, and I think he means the other version aloud there. Yeah. Again, Caleb Williams, man, lost all respect for man. You can't cry in your mama's lap. You can't do it. It's just sorry. You're a grown man. Stop it. John Anderson, what's up, man? He says I did not get a notification today. WTF? Yeah, as Bill says, alerts have been broken for a little while, John. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't aware of that problem, but again, usually we're Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Again, John, you of all people know that. You've been with us for how long now, listening? Now, I'll give you guys a heads up. We're going to be live tomorrow instead of Wednesday because Thursday, Friday, we're going to be doing literally pick 1 to pick 32 here on Thursday, and all however many picks there are on day 2 here. I'm not going to do the math in my head, but probably about 70 picks there overall.
A lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of picks here. So we'll be live for both first 2 days of the draft there. So we want to have a day off before we do that because, yeah, it's a lot of work, guys. It's a lot of work. But, we hope to see you guys there again. Every pick the first 2 days will be on here live. So not just the Giants, but literally every single pick here. So Bill Hartnett says it is 100% true. And I don't know what he says is 100% true, but I assume he was agreeing with us. So, yes, it is. John says, "Oh, those mother blankers." She says replace one Wilson with another Wilson. LOL. Russell for Zach Wilson. Broncos get 7th round. Jets get 6th round. Which I hate when they make those trades. It's like, what's the point even? But whatever. Like, oh, my 7th is now a 6th.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm gonna crush the competition now. Let's see. John says saw they might take a pick from Eagles for tampering with Saquon. Hope so. LOL. And as we lose Rob there, Rob, you there?
Oh, jeez.
There you are. You're
Papa,
a cartooning me again. You're cartooning me again for some reason. But yeah, I did read that as well. I'm hearing that it's supposed to be concluded their investigation by the end of the week. Apparently, from everything I'm reading here, it's basically what happened is in the legal tampering time period, you're allowed to talk to the agent, you're allowed to talk to representatives of the player, but you're not allowed to talk to the player himself. And apparently they talked to the player himself, and somehow there's proof of it. So, draft pick given up by the Eagles potentially. I don't know if they do it for this year, for next year. I gotta imagine they take a next year pick. It's too close to the draft to take one now. Especially because, like I said, if it's by the end of the week, we can do the night of. Hey, guess what, guys? You lost a pick today. Like,
yeah,
that's a little crazy.
First round pick you're supposed to have. It's good.
I think we should get the pick since they tamper with our player. That's me personally.
Right.
So technically, he wasn't a free agent at that point. You talked to one of our players. We should get your pick. All right. Bill says, I know one of the players just switched to number 3 as their number, but I'm hoping Zach gets it to save the money investment in jerseys for fans. It's only the right move. There you go. John says, just funny teams. Russell Wilson replaced with another Wilson, and Daniel might get switched with Daniels for quarterback. That'd be kind of funny. That's good. I didn't think about that. John says, if we can't get Nabors, think Brian Thomas Jr. is also a good long wingspan too, taller and a little better 40 time. Just don't remember if they double team Nabors. Either way, their yards TD almost seem to. The difference with them, as far as those two, John, is that keep in mind that Nabors did it for a couple of years. Brian did it for 1 year. That's the issue I have there. I don't know if Brian got better or if he was a product of Daniels getting better. I'm not sure which way to think. And I hate that because it's kind of like you never do know. You know, you can't just take a player out and see what happens basically and re-sim it like it's a Madden game here. But you don't know. And that's part of the problem. He's also a little less refined compared to Nabors. He's a speed guy. He's a Jalen Hyatt type. He's really, really fast. He's going to outrun pretty much anybody you put out there. So, you know, if that's something you need, great. But I think a late first round pick for me is where he should be at that point there. John says, any thoughts on Raja Tony for depth at defensive end? Was okay in college, got caught gambling, but he became available today. I gotta say I'm not too familiar with the guy. It wasn't a guy that I planned on talking about per se. I'm looking him up here, and he's not even coming up. So, but yeah, I think that you got to look at Shaka Tony. Is that who we're talking about? Yeah, there we go. Shaka Tony. Okay, he's the one. There we go. Look at the Raja you put in there. He's not the tiger from Aladdin. Now, Shaka, I remember. Shaka, I would do nothing with personally. He's a Penn State guy. I have no good thoughts from Penn State edge people. They tend to draft them every single year and draft them very high, and they tend to not do very good at all in the league for whatever reason. Let's see. He also says, Drew Roberto, do you think Vikings would do a swap with their 2 picks to move up to 6? If J.J. McCarthy was available or another top quarterback was available, I do. I do think the Vikings would. I don't think that the players. I don't think one of those guys would be available.
Yeah, they would have to go up to like they would have to go between 2 and 5. I'm sorry, 3 and 5, and I don't think they go 3. It's got to be 4 and 5, and like we already said in our mock, like Cardinals is probably where it makes sense for him.
Here's the thing, though. Like, let's say hypothetically the Cardinals say, no, we need a top receiver. I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. Chargers take Alt. Number 6 now, J.J. McCarthy sitting there. If the Giants don't want him, we could do worse. You go ahead and get a receiver with the first pick and hope one of the big 3 are there. You'll get a quarterback with that second pick. There's a lot worse you could do.
Yeah.
But like I said, I just don't know. I mean,
it's also
anything's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't dispute it's a gamble, but I would take that gamble, I think. Honestly, I think I would.
You're in year 3 with Shane and Dable, right?
Yeah.
If it's year 1, that's one thing. But you're in year 3, like it's come to like the make or break.
Yeah, but here's where I'm at.
So you got to make sure you can guarantee you're going to get the best draft that you can get, and you might be right. So like if they think they could get what they want with what was it, 11 and 23.
Well, here's what I'm saying. It's 11 and 23. Let's say hypothetically it works out that way. So you got the 3 quarterbacks going. You got Harrison, you got Alt, and then we pick. Okay. We could offer that trade. We make that trade. J.J. McCarthy now goes number 6 to the Vikings. Number 7 is the Titans. They're not taking wide receiver. They're going to take O-line. Not doubt in my mind they're taking O-line.
Yeah.
Number 8, Falcons. They're going to take defense of some kind. I'm not sold it's going to be edge, but they'll take a defense in my mind. They already got Pitts. They already got London. They already got the quarterback. They already got Bijan Robinson. They're not going to get another skill player like that. Then you got the Bears. The Bears, again, will probably take a receiver if one of those big 3 are available. In my opinion, again, they could take an offensive lineman. They could take an offensive lineman. They could take someone else to help. They could take Brock Bowers even for all I know, and put him and Cole Kmet do a double tight end. Do that kind of thing. Who knows? So you got one potential team. You got the Jets, who again I think will just take the best offensive lineman available, and then you have us. So even if, let's say, it does go that way, we're going to still have one of the big 3 receivers with the 23rd pick still there. I would take it.
Yeah.
It's a risk. Don't get me wrong. It is a risk. Again,
I'm not opposed to it, but they have to feel confident they're going to get the players they need with that pick. Because you're at 6. If you're back at 6 again next year, you're not going to have a draft for long. Or you might not have the job next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. But let's be honest. They don't get a quarterback. They might have a job either way. There's your quarterback.
What I'm saying. You have to be confident.
Let's see. Alejandro says, I'm a pro QB pick, but I would not be mad at this pick. And that's talking about us getting Marvin Harrison Jr. number 6 there. He says, definitely not. Only QB I would take are Williams, Maye, or Daniels. Maybe McCarthy we can't reach. That's why I like the pick. Exactly. You can't reach, guys. That's what gets you screwed worse than anything else. Not taking a quarterback gives you an excuse of sorts with the ownership. You're talking about Shane, being in year 3 and all with Dable. Like, that gives you some excuse. Hey, listen, we couldn't upgrade the QB position. Just couldn't do it. Without mortgaging everything.
Valuable player.
That's a whole lot better than picking the worst, picking the wrong quarterback. Like that's better than picking. It's not better than picking the right one, obviously. It's better than picking the wrong one. Let's see. John says, I still think Chargers swap with us and then Chargers swap with Vikings to get Herbert to Vikings, and Vikings give their 2 picks, and Jefferson and Chargers get JJ and a picker. I don't see that happening. I'm not buying the hype. I'm not buying the hype at all with the Chargers trying to get out. I'm sorry. I know Herbert is supposedly, again, having issues with, winning and stuff like that. I get that part of it. But I'm not going to go ahead and get JJ McCarthy, who, I'm sorry, again, just did not impress me in college. His best move was handing the ball off to Blake Corum.
You can still argue that JJ is a good quarterback. That's fine. Whatever.
He's a possibly good quarterback, I would say.
But you got Herbert. You know what you have in him. You know he's got the talent. He's proven it. He's played in the NFL at a high caliber level with, he's had talent around him, but like if I had to choose between Herbert and McCarthy,
Who's you?
Herbert all day long.
Here's the other thing that I don't think people quite recognize. There's a ton of money, guys, that he'd have to give up to get rid of Herbert. I'm looking up over the cap right now. Let's say you traded him, okay? Now you got to trade him You got to trade him pre-June 1st. Pre-June 1st. You can't do a post because this is after the draft. It's a $44 million hold on. Actually, that works out better than I thought. Wow, I'm kind of shocked, actually. Oh, no, I take it back. That is negative. Okay, $44 million cap hit you would take. Negative. Then as opposed to just paying him the $19 million he's owed right now. He would count $63 million against your cap just to trade him. That's crazy. He ain't going anywhere, guys. He's got 2 more years before you save money by trading him. And even then, you only save $9 million. He's not going anywhere. I'm still going to stick by that. I think that's crazy talk. There's not often these people willing to eat that kind of money. We'll get at you, Denver. Crazy people. John says, I just think Harbaugh wants JJ and wants all new team, smaller contract for QB, etc., and build his own team. He may want it, but he shouldn't have gone there then. They already have a big quarterback contract. Don't go there then. I don't think that's the case, because if he wanted that, he wouldn't be going there. He says Tommy Boy reference 10 LOL. Blow Derek while at 8 since she aged busy, still rocking though. And he says Ala effing Bama. John says, hey Stan, you and Ala effing Bama, you come from New York, you killed a good old boy. There's no way this is not going to trial. Let's see. He says, I know the time's true, but I usually get notification. Need her to suck faster. LOL. And he says Herbert hasn't won squat, so do a reboot. Again, you can't. He says, I think it's stupid if you trade, you get dead cap hit or whatever. It shouldn't be allowed trades if other teams take on contract. No, because you guaranteed them money. You handed them a signing bonus when you first signed them. If you want to get crazy about it, you should say the signing bonus should hit year 1 then. That's the fair way of doing it if you want to get fair to team and player. Instead, the NFL spreads that over the cap as long as they're on their team to try to make it easier for teams to give players more money as a signing bonus. If you had that whole cap hit the first year, nobody's giving this guys $30 million signing bonuses and that kind of stuff. You would never. So, like I said, it's not perfect, but it is what it is. They make the system as best they can. All right. Let's get into the picks here. We still got more picks to go here. We do got more picks to go.
13 months.
Oh, yeah. Number 20, the Steelers. And the Steelers, I look at the roster and go, you know what? What do they need? They need more defensive help. They need wide receiver. That's the 2 things that come to mind when you look at that roster. Now, wide receiver-wise, we all know they got a pretty good history of taking 2nd, 3rd round receivers and turning them into gold. It's what they do. Some people have skills in certain positions. Wide receiver is a skill for the Steelers. And not early receivers. I'm talking like day 2 receivers. So then I look at what they got. What's the biggest issue they have on defense? And it's corner. It's corner 100%. They got Joey Porter Jr. on one side, their 2nd round pick from last year, who was okay his rookie year for a rookie. You kind of just jury's still out on him, that kind of player. Didn't impress, but didn't embarrass. Then you look at the other side, they had Patrick Peterson there. He definitely looked 34 years old for once. He tried to move him to safety eventually, cut him this offseason. He, barely had a PFF grade over 60. Definitely not a typical Patrick Peterson kind of thing. They replaced him this offseason with Dante Jackson, where they got one of the trades they made this offseason with the Panthers. Jackson had a 64.3 PFF grade. Better than Patrick Peterson, you could say. Not that much better. So we're going for it. We're going for it here. And the Steelers take Nate Wiggins, corner out of Clemson. And they're going to get wide receiver later on, guys. They're going to get him. They're going to get like a Malachi Corley, a Jermaine Burton. They're going to get a guy probably for that because, oh, okay, we liked him, but we didn't want to take him too early. Like, that's the kind of guy they're going to get. And they'll probably be a really good player. That's what happens with these guys. That's what the Steelers do. Certain teams are really good. Like the Giants, we're really good at defensive tackles. I don't know why. We just are. For the last 20 years, we've always had a really good defensive tackle on this roster. And we've moved on from defensive tackle to defensive tackle. So, all right, next up. Number 21. Old enough to drink now.
21.
The Miami Dolphins select Graham Barton, offensive line out of Duke of Earl. Duke of Earl. They wanted to keep Robert Hunt this offseason. Couldn't afford to keep him, guys. They're having major salary cap issues right now. What happens when you pay $30 million to a wide receiver? But that's what they're dealing with right now. So you want to replace him? You replace him with a guy who a lot of people think is the best the best guard in this draft. But you got to keep in mind he's never played the position. He's always been a tackle. He's just not the long arm guy that you're going to expect to convert, and stay a tackle. You're going to expect to have to move him into guard at the NFL level. But even if they want to try him at tackle, they got holes all over that offensive line. As great as their skill players are, they have holes all over that offensive line, guys. So they bring a guy who just steps in right into Robert Hunt's place at that point there. Hopefully keeps Tua from being concussed again next year. And nice, simple, lunch pail, good pick. That's what that is.
Roger that.
All righty. It's time for one of our two main rivals. The Philadelphia Beagles. Now, there's a position on that team that on paper, based on name recognition, you go, okay, that's a good squad there. But they did crap last year. And that's corner. They really struggled at corner last year. So Darius Slay is 33 years old, guys, now. That's really old for a corner. Like, I hate to say it that way because that's young overall, but for a corner, that's really, really old. And they've invested a lot of money into him. And they move money back. Like, when he goes, there's going to be a penalty to put for that. He had a 68.4 PFF grade, which is basically an average player. That's not going to get better at 33 than it was at 32, guys. That's going to get worse. James Bradbury was there as well. Obviously, former Giants. You all should know him very well by name. He'll be 31 in August. 56.6 PFF grade last season. So what do you think they need? They need a corner.
Quarterback.
They do need a quarterback as well because theirs sucks, but they just paid him a lot of money. So they're going corner. Oh, yeah. It's time for Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. And listen, this guy can set up anywhere. You can put him in dime and nickel packages if you have to start off his career because he can play inside. This is a guy that if you have to play him year one even, you could do it. But if you want to sit him and see what these old guys got left in the tank there, so to speak, you can do that as well. I think it's a solid pickup for him at that point. So I really hope they don't do it because I hate the Eagles. I think they should go ahead and get the punter. That punter is amazing.
100% first round punter.
Exactly. That's the way to go. The Raider move.
History of the draft.
No, the Raiders did it. No, the Raiders, they weren't a punter. It was a kicker. They got what's his name?
Yeah.
The Polish guy. Can't remember his name now.
Dropsky or whatever.
Whatever his name is, with a really big leg. Yeah. Yeah, you know what we're talking about.
Dropsky. Drolowski?
Janikowski, right?
Yeah. Janikowski.
Janikowski? There we go. Okay. Like I said, I knew it was a ski name, so I figured it's Polish. Anyway. Next up, pick number 23. And guess who's back? Back again.
Back again.
The Cardinals are back.
All in red.
Yeah, love friend.
Guess who's back?
See, that's how you get muted. The system mutes you when you talk during the videos because you're muted again. The Cardinals went ahead and take Johnny Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois, because quite frankly, he is best player available. He fills a hole. Now, we talked about him as Jerzon because that's his actual name. For some reason, he's going by the name Johnny now. I don't know if he's just tired of people mispronouncing his name or misspelling his name or whatever, but he's going by Johnny now. So we're going to call him by Johnny since that's what he's asked. And listen, in the end, Jonathan Gannon, the head coach there, came from the Eagles, was very successful there. But why was he successful? Because he had 10,000 guys on the defensive line that were really, really good. You know, they had Fletcher Cox, they had Nagama Kasu, they had Josh Sweat, they had, Son Reddick. They had so many different players that were really good that final year on that defensive line. Well, here's a chance to get potentially the biggest stud at the defensive tackle position and go with it. And a guy who puts the pressure up the middle too. Rushes the passer from that position, which is going to help his edge rushers too. So I think it's a solid slam dunk pick for them overall. And again, fills a hole. They have plenty of holes. Here's a hole filled. Done.
All these holes tonight.
No more holes. Next up, speaking of holes, someone should dig a hole and put all their fans in it. The Cowboys.
Bunch of a-holes.
You can't help but talk during the video, can you? The Dallas Cowboys pick number 24, and they go with Jackson Powers Johnson, center out of Oregon. They lost Tyler Biotish to the Commanders, this offseason here. They fill a hole there. But again, this is a guy who also could play guard if you need him to at that point. A lot of people talked about him with that. He played guard in college as well, so he's got some versatility there. But yeah, potentially the best interior offensive lineman in the draft there. And there we go. Cowboys fill a hole, go back to getting old school Cowboy football where you get some strong offensive line up front, which is what they did for years. And when they were semi-dominant, at least dominant in the regular season, that's what they did. They have other holes. They have running back and all that stuff. They can get that later on. Go and get the biggest needs you got, which is fixing up front. Or don't. There's a great punter, again, available, I've heard, in the first round. I think he's a spectacular move. All righty. Next up, we got the Green Bay Packers.
Two sets.
Now, you look at what they lost this year in the offseason. And the Packers lost David Bakhtiari, who, let's be very frank, has been injured almost every year, so I don't consider that as much a loss. Great player when he's healthy. No disrespect to him when I say that. He's just never been healthy with the last couple of years, basically, where they don't count on him anymore. And then they also lost, heard some team in New York got him, John Runyon Jr. at the guard position here. So we go ahead and give them Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle at Oklahoma, who, again, another guy who also can play guard if need be. And he's going to plug a hole for you. What hole you want him to plug depends on what, this is sounding worse and worse.
Depends on the night.
Yeah, it depends on the night and your mood.
Yeah.
Feeling shitty.
Depends on the defense and the backfield you're playing in.
But I'm just saying, you're going to bring him into camp, see where he fits best as a guard or as a tackle, and pop him where you got to pop him at that point there. But he's a legit first-round talent. He's a guy who's gotten better. I feel like year after year when you watch his tape there, he's gotten more refined. And he's a guy who can step in and start day one for them. And again, we talked about protecting the quarterback. they have a young quarterback as well. You got to protect him. You get a lot of offensive weapons the last couple of years for him, so they don't need to go ahead and get more of that necessarily. But you lost, like I said, 40% of your offensive line here. You got to go ahead and protect him. So they get the guy to go ahead and block up front for him. All right. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are. You ever notice that like a pirate accent is like a drunken Scottish accent?
It's just a drunken English accent. That's actually what an Australian accent is. It's a drunken English accent.
No. But I think you get a Scottish person like drunk. That's what they sound like a pirate. They sound like a pirate. Just like that, we lost all our Scottish listeners. Both of them are gone now.
Yeah, I was a fan of the Scottish hair.
I thought this was a rugby thing, and after my beers, now I'm plundering, looting. Anyway, with the 26th pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Chop Robinson, edge, Penn State. Now, I would have thought for them, Jackson Powers Johnson if the Cowboys didn't take him, because they do need a lot of interior offensive line help. I think they'll have to get that later on, because at this point, the top guy basically left for interior offensive line is Cooper Bebe, who's probably be like a second-round pick, maybe even top of the third round. There's just not a lot of top guards there at that point, and they're all taken. So I think Chop is where they go. I'm not a big fan of Chop. I just think he's the best edge player left. And, they got Randy Gregory in free agency, who's, let's be honest, never been that great, even though people, for some reason, blow him up to be so great. But they lost Shaq Barrett this offseason. He went to the Dolphins. And while he hasn't been getting as many sacks the last couple of years there, he's still a damn good player. He's still been a good veteran, solid player at that point. They've been getting pressure that's setting the edge. So they're going to need somebody else to do that. And I don't think Randy Gregory is that guy. So they get Chop Robinson, hoping he's the guy. Again, I don't think he is. I think it's a bad pick if that's where they go. But I'm not picking who I would pick. I'm picking who I think the Bucs would pick. And that's where they're going.
Makes sense.
Now it's a little time for some deja vu. Because next up is the Arizona Cardinals.
Back again. Pick number 3.
I told you this is like a big draft for them potentially. And again, they have so many holes in this team. You just go BPA basically. And guess who BPA is? Another wide receiver. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver at LSU. Did I mention how bad their wide receiver group was? I'm just saying, like, now it's not. They got Rome Odunze. They get Brian Thomas Jr. And what's great is these guys are complementary talents. You got a guy who sits there and basically is a tall receiver, the big receiver, the jump ball guy in Odunze. Then you get the speedy receiver in Brian Thomas. You already got Trey McBride at the tight end position, And then you go ahead and look at the fact that they still have Michael Wilson, we talked about, who is going to be their number 1 right now, is now their third receiver, a guy who had 550 yards last year. That's a good setup now. With James Conner obviously still at running back as well. You got some weapons around Kyler Murray now. That's some weapons. And you still got more and more picks to go later on to go ahead and fix other things, like get maybe offensive line help for him or something like that, get a more defensive help. So, yeah, this is a team now that you go on paper and go, okay, you got something here. You got something. So, yeah.
Hey, kid, you got it.
And you know who's really upset about this pick? The Buffalo Bills.
Oh, I knew it.
Because the Buffalo Bills wanted Brian Thomas Jr. really bad. Keep in mind they got rid of a certain Stephon Diggs, who they kept saying was happy there, but clearly wasn't happy there. And they got Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas instead, who's still a really good player, don't get me wrong. But there is a little bit of a gap there between those two talent-wise at that point. Mitchell comes in, basically becomes their number 1 right away. Yeah, it's going to be a totally different looking offense next year. And I think the big reason why is I think they're going to do a lot more focus in Buffalo on the run game. It's going to be one of those kind of things where kind of like you saw the second half of last year. They got a receiving tight end now. They're going to pass the ball and spread it out a little more. And this gives them another great target here to spread it out to at that point. So, good pickup for them, solid pickup. I still wouldn't be shocked if they pick up a second receiver at some point, later on down the line, like the third, fourth round, just to kind of strengthen up that room, because not only did they lose Diggs, but they lost they're both their top receivers there.
Gabe Davis, right?
Yeah. So gonna have to fill that hole somehow. Whoa. Who said that?
Yeah.
Who said that?
One wide out at a time.
Oh, and we're tight end occasionally.
Oh my! Yeah. Ooh.
All right. Next up, before we get banished on YouTube here, the Detroit Lions picking the highest they picked since 1937. All right, I finally got the hair out of my mouth. I've been trying to get the last minute or two. I don't know what happened. One went flying on my mouth somehow. We got a controversial pick here. We talked about him during our corners talk here. Obviously, every single player here we talked about at some point during our thing here. But yeah, I think we got like 140 player profiles we did all together this draft season here. By the way, that's all on YouTube on all the draft profiles. If you look, there's, like I said, about 140. So if you guys are curious to see what you think of a player, maybe you missed an episode or so, they're all right there. Pop a look. While you're there, hit the like button, give a good comment.
Hit the Scroobies.
So, Lions always need some extra help on the defense there. Listen, their offense has been spectacular. There's a player sitting there that I don't know where he's going to play, to be very frank with you guys. I don't know if he's going to play corner. I don't know if he's going to play safety. All I know he's going to play, he's going to be a player. And that's Cooper DeJean, the defensive back, we'll call him, out of Iowa. And, they lost a couple players this offseason now in the secondary. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as a safety. That brings it right there. They can go ahead and pop him at a couple different places. They can put him in as a nickel dime package kind of guy at that point, just to see what he's got and figure it out from there. But listen, talent is talent. And you got a chance to get good top talent, you take top-end talent. Keep in mind that they also have a former defensive back, former corner at the DC position in Aaron Glenn, a former Jet. So you got a good guy to evaluate the talent that DeJean brings and figure out where the best spot is for him there. And listen, if they draft him, they've been pretty damn good at drafting the last couple of years, guys. If they draft him, that tells you he's probably going to be a decent player.
Really
with he's going. Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Caw, the Ravens. Again, I played the video. I didn't get a chance. We didn't get a chance to see you do it. I saw on the bottom there. Doing a little flappy do there with your arms. All right, number 30. The Ravens.
Me? No.
Yeah, no, you. Number 30, the Ravens take Xavier Worthy, another wide receiver out of Texas. OBJ is gone. And Lamar Jackson needs another person not to throw to. And this is their guy they're not going to throw to in this case here. Listen, Zay Flowers is a spectacular player. They got him in the first round last year. It's weird for a team to double up. But if you go based on what this roster has, you got Bateman there. You got obviously two really good tight ends, and Likely and Andrews there. You don't really have much talent still at the wide receiver. You got Nelson Aguilar, who has not been very good everywhere else he's gone, but gets a couple hundred yards a year as a Raven typically. He's on a one-year deal. To me, that's still an obvious weakness of this team is they need more wide receiver help here. They also need a quarterback that throws to wide receivers, but they really need wide receivers. So we're going to go ahead and get that one. Hopefully one day Lamar Jackson learns that there's guys on the outside to throw to, not just guys in the middle. Maybe just get a whole bunch of slot receivers for them and keep pushing them inwards and slant routes didn't work for OBJ that good. He's one of the best slat runners I've ever seen in my life. So, but again, all joking aside, Lamar Jackson, you don't know if you watch the show. I jest, but I like the player, respect the player. But Zay Flowers didn't have a bad rookie year. A lot of receivers have not thrived under him. So, got to bring another one. You got to keep trying to figure it out because you've signed this guy to a lot of money. And if you don't throw to receivers and you just throw to tight ends, you're not going to have a huge passing game. Tight ends are typically 5-10 yards down the field. Wide receivers are 20-30 at times. There's a big difference. It's a big difference. So one more time, we'll give it with a nice speedy guy at that point. The guy literally broke the record for the 40 time at this combine here. So
he's worthy.
It's time for these guys to try to find some gold. It's the 49ers. Oh yes, I did a gold reference there. The gold rush. Here's a guy whose name we're going to mispronounce probably because we always do. Let's see if we get it right. Kingsley Suamatia was an offensive tackle at a BYU. Another guy that, again, may play guard, may play tackle. The right side of the line has been just a huge issue for the Niners their last year. And here's a guy who played at the right side of the line, not this past season, but the season before. So he's played it effectively. And he's shown he can switch back and forth with no problem, obviously, too, since he did that. So I think as much as this is a solid team, there's not really any issues, unless they trade away Brandon Ayuk, which is the one unless I'll give with this, because that's still a possibility. I think they're gonna go ahead and get an offensive lineman and try to fix that offensive line. If they get rid of Brandon Ayuk, they might go receiver at that point there. They might. It'd be 50-50. But especially because Debo is more of a hybrid kind of player at that point. But I don't think they're going to get rid of Brandon Ayuk personally. I think they're just going to play it out and call it a day. You typically when wide receivers want out, they don't let them out for a little while. So they kind of hold on to them until they can. Kind of like the Bills. So next up, we got Mr. Irrelevant of the first round. And the Kansas City Chiefs are on the clock. Someone's got to be able to get the ball thrown to him by Kermit the Frog. This poor man has got no receivers whatsoever. So we're giving him one. We're going with the top receiver left on the board here. Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. And is there a more glaring hole in this roster than wide receiver? I mean, seriously. You've got to give him someone to throw to. You can't keep throwing to Travis Kelce. Let's be honest and say that Kelce is on his way out eventually. He's not young. Like, I'm not trying to be mean about it. I hate to say that kind of stuff because these guys are all younger than I am. But he's in his 30s now. He's 34 years old, guys. That's young in most cases.
And his girlfriend makes a lot more than he does. So why does he have to get beat up?
Well, I don't think that's an issue. I just think that, he's, again, 34 years old. He's playing football. He's got maybe 2-3 years left. You better start developing someone for Mahomes to throw to, because Mahomes has got more than 2 or 3 years left. And here's your chance to get a guy who, listen, not a bad player at all. Talked about him during our wide receiver group as well. He's a good player. I think he's a safe pick to at least be a legit NFL talent. I'm not sure how high that ceiling is going to be for him, but he'll be a guy who's at least a lot better than who they got. Except for Rashid Rice, but who knows what's going to happen with him this offseason with his legal trouble. So, but if he's healthy and they can put Rice and Coleman together side by side at that point, Kelce in the middle, that's not a bad combo necessarily. That's got some potential. And it's a whole lot better than what they had last year, that's for damn sure. So, all right, guys.
100%.
That's our first round mock. I didn't think it would take almost 2 hours to do. Goddamn.
Let's say 2 hours in. Let's go.
Practice for
real.
We're practicing for Thursday when it's 4 or 5 hours at that point there. So yeah, again, guys, we'll be back again tomorrow night. Keep in mind it's a different schedule. So for those of you watching live, we're back on Tuesday. For those of you guys listening on audio, we'll be back on Wednesday morning for that. And we're gonna take Wednesday itself off so we can go ahead and rest up before the draft. So tomorrow, special time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though itself as always, but a Tuesday episode of Two Giant Goofballs coming. We're gonna do our last final full 7-round mock draft with the New York Football Giants here. So be there or be square. And in this case here, it is not hip to be square. So don't do it. If you haven't already, guys,
Ooh.
you like the programming, please hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit share, hit the bell for notifications. You're not like John, not getting them. Hopefully YouTube gets that fixed, since this is the first I'm hearing of a problem with that. As always, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X. I always want to say Twix for some reason. Twitch. It's the right side or the left side. I'm not sure.
I was about to say, which one? Left or right side?
I don't know. They're both so good.
Drew side or Rob side?
And then it's definitely Drew side. And then of course, Rob's favorite. Oh, yes.
Drew's
my LinkedIn profile. Oh, yes. And of course, as always, we are available the next day on all the audio podcast platforms. Goes live at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's written time for your drive into work there. Unless you go into work earlier than that. If that's the case, tell your boss you need to sleep a little. God damn it, that's way too early. But 5 o'clock Eastern, we are available. It's on all the audio podcast platforms here: Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, like you name it, we're on it pretty much there. So if you can, give us a 5-star on that as well if you're listening, especially on Spotify. Spotify hates us for some reason. Apple loves us. Spotify hates us with a passion. Yeah. So screw you, Spotify, for hating us. Unless you start liking us, then we love you.
Yeah. Hey.
All right, guys. So we'll see you guys again tomorrow night here, and then prepare for our last episode here before the draft itself. It starts up. It's coming, guys. Do. Draft time. All right, guys. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Appreciate you guys listening as always. And as always, Giant fans,
Go G-Man!
Go
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.